Before BlackBerry failed, before touchscreens dominated the world, before smartphones became entertainment devices, BlackBerry was the smartphone. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, BlackBerry didn't just sell phones. They sold power, status, and control. If you saw someone typing on a BlackBerry phone, you knew one thing immediately. This person was important. CEOs used it. Politicians depended on it. Governments trusted it. Even the President of the United States refused to give it up. The beginning. BlackBerry was created by a Canadian company called Research in Motion, or RIM. Their original goal wasn't entertainment. It was communication. Fast, secure, reliable. They focused on one powerful idea: email anywhere, anytime. At a time when most phones were only for calling and texting, BlackBerry allowed professionals to read and respond to emails instantly. This was revolutionary. Why BlackBerry felt untouchable? BlackBerry had three massive advantages. First, the keyboard. The physical keyboard was fast, accurate, and addictive. Once people got used to it, typing on anything else felt slow and frustrating. Second, security. BlackBerry's encryption was so strong that governments trusted it with classified information. No other phone company could match that level of security. Third, BlackBerry Messenger, BBM. BBM created a private, instant messaging network. Before WhatsApp, before Telegram, before iMessage, BBM was already there. People shared pins instead of phone numbers. It felt exclusive. Peak dominance. By the mid-2000s, BlackBerry controlled more than 40% of the smartphone market in some regions. They were not chasing trends. They were the trend. To BlackBerry, the future was clear. Physical keyboards, business users, emails and productivity, entertainment, apps, and touchscreens felt like toys. And that belief would slowly become their downfall. The dangerous comfort of success. When a company wins for too long, it stops questioning itself. BlackBerry executives believed, our users will never leave. Touchscreens are inefficient. Business matters more than fun. They didn't think they needed to change, because from their perspective, they were already perfect. The calm before the storm. In 2006, BlackBerry was at the top of the world. Sales were strong. Loyal users everywhere. Competitors were far behind. But something was coming. Something BlackBerry didn't take seriously. Something they underestimated. A device that didn't have a keyboard. A device built not for business, but for people. And when it arrived, everything changed. In January 2007, the smartphone world changed forever. On a quiet stage in San Francisco, Steve Jobs walked out wearing a black turtleneck and jeans. He smiled, paused, and said one sentence that would shake the entire industry. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. Most people didn't realize it yet, but this moment marked the beginning of the end for BlackBerry. A phone without a keyboard. When Apple revealed the first iPhone, many executives in the industry were confused. No physical keyboard, a large touchscreen, apps controlled by fingers. To BlackBerry, this wasn't innovation. It was a joke. Inside BlackBerry's leadership, the reaction was clear. Typing on glass will never work. Business users need real keyboards. This is just a consumer toy. They believed Apple didn't understand professionals. And worst of all, they believed their dominance made them untouchable. Two different visions of the future. Apple and BlackBerry weren't just competing with products. They had opposite philosophies. BlackBerry believed, phones are tools. Business comes first. Control matters more than experience. Apple believed, phones are personal. Simplicity wins. User experience is everything. While BlackBerry optimized email servers and security protocols, Apple focused on gestures, animations, and design. One company was protecting the past. The other was building the future. The touchscreen denial. BlackBerry engineers tested touchscreens internally. They knew the technology was improving, but leadership refused to commit. Why? Because admitting touchscreens were the future meant admitting their greatest strength, the keyboard, might become irrelevant, and that was too painful to accept. Instead of asking, "What if we're wrong?" they asked, "How do we protect what we already have?" The market starts to shift. After the iPhone launched, something unexpected happened. People enjoyed using their phones, not just for work, but for browsing, watching, playing, and socializing. Smartphones stopped being tools. They became extensions of human life. Developers rushed to build apps. Consumers wanted more. BlackBerry had email. Apple had an ecosystem. The fatal delay. BlackBerry didn't completely ignore the iPhone. They just responded too slowly. Internal debates dragged on. Decisions were delayed. Executives argued. By the time BlackBerry tried to adapt, Apple had already captured attention, developers, and loyalty. The gap was growing, and BlackBerry was still convinced they could catch up without changing who they were. The turning point. This wasn't the moment BlackBerry died, but it was the moment they lost control of the future. They didn't lose customers overnight. They lost momentum. And in technology, losing momentum is often worse than losing money. What once felt exclusive now felt limiting. Desperate moves. BlackBerry launched new devices rapidly. Too rapidly. Different models. Different strategies. No clear direction. Some phones had touchscreens. Some had keyboards. Some had both. The brand identity weakened. Consumers didn't know what BlackBerry stood for anymore. Losing the new generation. The most painful loss wasn't business users. It was young people. Students, creators, developers, and everyday consumers chose iPhones and Androids. BlackBerry became uncool, outdated, irrelevant. Once a brand loses the next generation, its future disappears with them. Still not dead, but bleeding. BlackBerry wasn't gone yet, but they were bleeding users, developers, and relevance. The market had moved forward, and BlackBerry was running, while carrying the weight of its past. By the early 2010s, the truth was impossible to ignore. BlackBerry was no longer leading the smartphone industry. They were chasing it. Sales were declining. Market share was shrinking. Confidence was fading. For the first time, BlackBerry leadership admitted something they had avoided for years. They needed to change completely. The BlackBerry 10 gamble. In 2013, BlackBerry made its boldest move yet. They introduced BlackBerry 10, a brand new operating system built from scratch. This was not an update. This was a reset. The interface was modern. Gestures replaced buttons. Multitasking was improved. For a moment, it felt like BlackBerry might actually survive. But the problem wasn't the software. The problem was time. Too late to matter. By the time BlackBerry 10 arrived, iOS was mature. Android was dominant. App ecosystems were massive. Developers had already committed elsewhere. Convincing them to return was nearly impossible. Even loyal BlackBerry users hesitated. Why switch to a platform with fewer apps, fewer updates, and an uncertain future? BlackBerry 10 wasn't bad. It was just irrelevant. The hardware identity crisis. BlackBerry released multiple devices running BB10, some with keyboards, some fully touchscreen. They were still unsure who they were building for. Business users had already moved on. Consumers didn't care anymore. The magic was gone, abandoning their own OS. Eventually, BlackBerry made a shocking decision. They gave up. They stopped developing their own operating system and switched to Android. This was the ultimate admission of the defeat. The company that once dominated mobile communication was now relying on someone else's platform to survive. The final exit. Even Android wasn't enough. Sales continued to fall. The brand no longer carried weight. In 2016, BlackBerry officially stopped making phones. A company that once defined smartphones walked away from the industry it helped create. What BlackBerry became. BlackBerry didn't disappear completely. They shifted focus to cybersecurity, enterprise software, automotive systems. They survived as a company, but they died as a phone icon. The real reason BlackBerry failed. BlackBerry didn't fail because they lacked talent. They didn't fail because they lacked resources. They failed because they resisted change. They protected the past instead of building the future. They confused success with permanence.